Hi, I am Anand Shirahatti from Verifsuda Technologies Private Limited. Welcome to Digital Design Functional Verification Introduction presentation. This introduction to digital verification is targeted towards understanding key fundamentals of verification and establish the scope of verification activity. My belief is when you understand key fundamentals and overall scope of any activity, you are well set to explore and learn. We will start off with few familiar concepts from our digital circuits course studied in the college. We will use it to introduce verification fundamentals. Subsequently, we will define the process of verification. Use this process as a basis to establish the scope of verification. Verification activity is made up of three phases. We will briefly look into key components of each of these three phases made up of planning phase, development phase, and regression phase. Towards the end of presentation, we will look into various roles to be played in the verification project. We will close presentation with the current verification trends. I am hoping at the end of this presentation, you should be able to gain some key insights and ideas about verification. This should help especially new entrants to find out if verification is a right career choice for them. Let's start with a question. Have I ever done digital design verification? If you are wondering, answer is yes. It may be possible that everyone may not have done RTL design, but verification is something that's done by every electronics engineer in their digital circuits lab. For every lab, as soon as you collected the ICs for the experiment, do you remember what you did? You may now say it's all forgotten. No problem. Let me refresh it. We verified the ICs prior to using them. How? How did we verify? Let's consider a simple AND gate IC like a popular 7408 which contains 4 2-input AND gates. First, you would have plugged IC in the breadboard and powered it up. After powering it up, you would have used the truth table of AND gate to apply all 4 possible combinations of input stimulus and check if the output is as per the expectation by looking at the LED or a oscilloscope. This process was repeated for all the ICs being used in the experiment. Only after we figured out all the ICs are functioning, we used them to build the circuits required by the lab experiment. So, what fundamentally did we do to verify the IC? Simple. We stimulated the inputs and checked the outputs as per the specification of IC. Functional verification is fundamentally all about stimulus generation and response checks. For a verification engineer, this concept is very important. It's so important that it should be worn as a goggle all the time during the verification activity to stay focused on objective of verification. Just wear your verification goggles for the rest of the presentation. Now that we have understood the fundamentals of verification, next question is this how verification is performed in a real-life ASIC design project? Let's find out. A RTL design is typically developed in a Verilog or a VHDL language. Code is maintained in a central repository. For any new change to be put into the repository, requirement is to maintain the feature already developed and working in a working state. This requires repeating the process of verification several times. Now just imagine design is changing more than 30 times every day in a repository. Changes can be either for a new feature addition or to fix a bug in an existing feature. Every change can potentially break the already working features of the design. Once broken, it's difficult to get it back into working state if further changes are done on the top of broken code. So we would like to ensure working feature stays in a working state throughout the development. And if it ever gets broken, we would like to find out as soon as possible. These are some of the real life requirements. Now the question is, can we achieve it with our manual method? We can, but that requires repeating the stimulus generation and check procedure manually several times every day. Manually doing it for a large designs is practically impossible. Also, manual process is prone to mistakes and takes time. Mistakes and time are very expensive in the field of ASIC. So we need a mechanism to repeat the process of stimulus generation and response checking automatically. Have you already seen the solution to this problem? Yes, that's a digital IC tester. It's a equipment used in the digital circuits lab for checking the ICs. It automatically loops through the stimulus combination and checks the output. At the end of the test, it indicates if the IC under test has passed or failed the test. Note that it has a socket to plug in the IC, keypad to select the IC number like 7408, and keys to start the test. LCD display will indicate test progress and results at the end of the test. We need a similar mechanism for verifying the custom ASICs. In the verification word, this mechanism is called as a test bench. You will see the test bench built in real life verification will also logically have a similar features. First, ability to generate the stimulus and do response checks. Second, ability to automatically repeat this process. In next few slides, we will find out how to do it at the scale required by the current generation complex ASICs. In order to do it effectively and repeat it, we need to formalize the process. So let's define the process of verification. This slide shows the process of verification. Requirements state the expectation of application from design. Requirements can be standard specification or proprietary specifications. Standard specification, for example, includes USB, PCI Express, etc. Custom specification can be GPU algorithms, encoders, military communication protocols, etc. These requirements are transformed into RTL design. RTL design in the context of verification is referred to as design under test, or in short DUT or DUT. Process of verification is to check if the DUT meets the requirements. Please note that the same requirements that were transformed to build DUT are also transformed to build the test bench and test suite used for verification. Test suite is a group of tests. Test generates the stimulus and checks if the DUT behavior is as per the requirements. When the entire test suite has passed on the final version of the DUT, it's considered to have met the functional requirements. Now that we have formalized the process of verification, let's formalize the implementation and execution of verification project. Implementation of verification project involves building the test bench, test suite, and executing them with the design effectively. There are four key ingredients of verification project. They are three phases of verification project. Fourth ingredient is managing these three phases. Three phases are planning phase shown on the right hand side, development phase shown on the left hand side, regression phase on the top, managing these phases shown at the bottom of the picture. You will hear some of the new terms which are described subsequently. Planning is the first phase. Planning phase is about creating the plan for execution. It consists of creating two key technical plans. They are verification plan and test bench architecture. Based on these two technical plans, task list for the development phase and regression phase is created. Tasks are grouped based on the priority into milestones. Milestones are mapped to various upcoming weeks and months for the execution of tasks based on the availability of engineers. After the planning phase, the execution of each of the milestone consists of development phase followed by regression phase. In development phase, the test bench and test suite for the selected features are developed. Modern test bench and test suite are developed using high-level verification languages such as System Verilog and verification methodologies such as Universal Verification Methodology, or in short as UVM. Development of test bench and test suite code resembles the software development based on object-oriented programming concepts. When the feature is ready in both the DUT and test bench, the regression phase starts. In regression phase, the new features being verified are enabled without breaking the already working features. It involves running the tests and variations of tests for all new as well as older features. The key activity in regression phase is debugging and filing bugs found in the design. Development and regression phase in pair are executed for all project milestones till closure. Let's look at what is the percentage of time spent in each of these phases. Note that this division of time among various phases is approximate, but ratios between the phases are in ballpark range for most of the projects. The planning phase takes about the 20% of overall project time. Significant of it is spent during the initial part of the project. Development phase takes about 30% of the overall project time. Rest of the 50% is spent in what is popularly known as R&D, not the research and development as popularly known, but in the verification word it means regression and debug. Debug is one of the most time consuming activity. Now let's take a bit more detailed look into key activities performed in each of these three phases in next few slides. Let's start with the planning phase. Planning phase is mainly about creating two key technical plans. First is the verification plan and second is the test bench architecture. Verification plan is one of the most important deliverables of the functional verification. Starting verification without a verification plan is strictly no. Verification plan is essentially translating requirements into verifiable description. A verifiable description has to be aligned to technology used for the verification. Only when it's aligned, it helps improve the chances of success. One of the most popular approaches used for the functional verification today is coverage-driven constrained random verification. In this approach, verification plan is made up of test plan, checks plan, and coverage plan. Test plan contains information about stimulus generation and test-specific checks to be performed. Checks plan contain information about all the global checks applicable across tests implemented in test bench components. Coverage plan contains interesting parameters and scenarios to be confirmed to have been verified. Next, let's look bit more into the details of each of these three plans. Remember, reference for creating all these three plans is requirement specification. Test plan lists the set of scenarios and their variations to be stimulated. These scenarios are implemented as tests. Variation of tests are meant to cover the programmable functionality of DUT. For example, consider a USB port on your latest mobile. Some of these mobiles support OTG USB port. A OTG compliant USB port can work both as host and device, which means in a test plan of a OTG USB port, a simple USB data traffic test will have to be exercised in both the configurations. Coverage will have to cover the traffic variations in both the configurations. Checks plan will have to list the various expected legal responses in both the configurations. Verification description in the form of stimulus, check and coverage for all possible variations are captured in these three plans. With requirement specifications translated to verifiable descriptions in the form of three plans, we are now ready to move into test bench architecture. Test bench architecture should meet the requirements of all these three plans. First step towards building the test bench architecture is to model the application world surrounding the DUT. Application world can be really complex and we don't want to model everything. We need to abstract it to what is relevant for the DUT. What does that mean? Imagine a AND gate sitting in a missile control system. If AND gate were to be our DUT, we don't want to model the entire missile control system to verify the AND gate functionality. To avoid getting lost in irrelevant details of vast application world, focus on it as seen by DUT's eyes and not from the application's eyes. How? Imagine getting into DUT and seeing the application world surrounding the DUT by wearing the verification goggles. This is a very important concept. It helps in abstracting the application world surrounding the DUT in terms of stimulus required by the DUT and responses of the DUT to be checked. Think of it as a building movie sets. When one builds movie sets, the details modeled are limited to what's visible to the camera. This abstracted application world requirements has to be combined with the requirements of the verification plan to create the test bench architecture for implementation. That leads us to the next step of test bench architecture, which is division of test bench functionality into various components to meet both of these requirements. In order to help with the functional division, test bench architecture is visualized in two forms. First is a layered form and second is a structural form. These views help make choices and trade-off between various possible approaches to arrive at a optimum solution. Let's take a look at them starting with the layered view. TestBench functional division in layer form is dividing overall functionality into 5 layers. The innermost layer is the test bench top where the signals of the DUT are connected to the test bench. Second layer is about abstracting the signal level information to transaction level information. A transaction in OOPS terminology is object containing related information. For example, in a simple memory interface, it will contain information as to whether it's a read or write, address, and data. Second layer is primarily made up of bus functional models. Bus functional models convert the signal level information to transaction level information to be processed by the higher level layers. BFMs implement all checks that can be performed independently on respective interfaces except the data integrity checks. Third layer is made up of components that process the transactions created by the second layer. Let's look at few key components of this layer. Scoreboards implement the checks on the integrity of the data crossing the different interfaces of the design. For example, in a USB controller, it would mean checking the integrity of the data presented to input of the host controller to data leaving on the USB wires. This is meant to check if the design is processing data correctly. Second most important part of the third layer is translators. Translators translate the application level stimulus to transactions. For example, in a USB host controller, a stimulus might be to transfer say 10 kilobyte worth of data equivalent to a file. Translators take care of converting this stimulus to series of transactions to be passed to BFM. Fourth layer is primarily related to application modeling. Application level stimulus generators are focus of this layer. Configurations specify the programmable configuration of the DUT selected. Stimulus generators generate the stimulus matching the programmed configuration. Fifth layer is tests. Tests configure and control the test bench to achieve the verification objectives. Let's now look at the test bench from structural functional division perspective. Structural view is just another representation of same functionality as represented by the layered view. It's just a different perspective. Let's start with the DUT in the middle of the picture. DUT will have data and control interfaces. Data interface is for communicating the data to be processed. Control interface is for managing the DUT. Managing can involve programming the DUT using control registers or finding out the status through status registers. For every DUT bus interface, a BFM is required. At the highest level of each of these interfaces is an application level stimulus generator. Stimulus generators can be seen at the top of the picture in pink color. Stimulus generator can be data stimulus generator or control stimulus generators. Data stimulus generators generate the variation of the data traffic. For example, a USB device it would require a various file sizes to be transferred generated as stimulus. For a camera, it can be the various image sizes to be captured. Control stimulus generators generate control commands like reset, sending the device to low power mode, and reading and writing of the control and status registers, etc. Both the stimulus generators are controlled by the configuration and state of the system. Translators, the yellow boxes sitting between the pink stimulus generators and the BFMs, convert it from the application level stimulus to the transaction level stimulus. Transaction level stimulus is then converted to signal level information and driven to the DUT by BFMs. On the left hand side, you can see a scoreboard checking for the data integrity of the data traveling across interfaces. Functional coverage on the right hand side will collect various information from different test bench components to confirm the functional coverage of the scenarios of interest. Using these two views, the test bench architecture is finalized. With that, we have completed the planning phase. We now have the verification plan and test bench architecture. Next, let's look into development phase. Key activity in a development phase is implementing the test bench and test suite. Test bench and test suite are coded using the high-level verification languages and verification methodology. Let's look at briefly what they are. Let's start with high-level verification languages. Hardware description languages such as VHDL or Verilog are designed for describing the design in RTL or behavioral form. They were not designed to ease the verification, whereas the high-level verification languages, or in short HVLs, such as System Verilog, are designed to ease the verification. As we have already seen, verification is about stimulus generation and response checks. HVLs provide constructs for easing the stimulus generation and checks implementation. Stimulus generation is significantly eased with the help of randomization features and constraint constructs. Randomization features allow the generation of pseudo-random values. Uncontrolled randomness would not have been much useful. Constraints allow the way to control the range of randomization. System Verilog has constructs called assertions. Assertions are a kind of sub-languages by themselves. Assertion constructs ease the modeling of checks to be done immediately or spread out over multiple simulation cycles in a very concise form. Along with the constructs for easing the stimulus generation and checks implementation, System Verilog has constructs to model the functional coverage. On the top of this, most HVLs have object-oriented programming support, which eases the complexity management. But please note, the object-oriented programming usage is a bit different in the context of verification world compared to the software world. The same concepts of object-oriented programming such as abstraction, inheritance, and polymorphism are adapted in a certain ways to ease the meeting of verification objectives. Let's now briefly look at what is verification methodology. The maturity of coverage-driven constraint random verification approach has led to definition of best known practices used by experts all over the leading semiconductor companies. Verification methodology is a way to capture and deploy the best known practices. Verification methodology essentially creates the framework based on these best known practices for building the test benches and test suites and doing verification in general. Framework is an embodiment of several man years of experience. Such framework, when adopted right by users, provides the standardization. Standardization improves the consistency and portability. Verification environment across companies would then look similar. This would enable reuse not only across different projects within a company but also across the companies. Reuse promotes quality and reduces time to market. Verification methodologies are built on the top of HVLs. They rely heavily on object-oriented programming features supported by the HVLs. One of the key concepts in the current verification methodologies is transaction and transactor. A transaction is a unit of information. Transactor is a processing element that processes the information inside the transaction. Transaction is like an instruction and transactor is like an processor. This paradigm provides lot of flexibility through its programmability. Flexibility is one of the key requirements for the verification environment. Verification methodologies are deployed to user through set of base and utility classes. Base classes are used for building the framework. Base classes are extended by the user and user adds user specific code in extended classes to build the user verification environments. By understanding test bench architecture, framework provided by the verification methodologies and HVLs, the test bench and test suite code is developed by the verification engineers. Once it's ready, the next step is to take it for a spin. After the test bench and test suites are ready, Next step is to compile them in the simulator. Simulators take in the test bench top and set of directories where the various test bench components are located. This would enable simulators to compile the entire test bench and test suite code base. Once the code compiles without any compile errors, next step is to run the simulations. There are two modes of running the simulation. One of them is the interactive mode. In interactive mode, simulators provide GUI similar to the integrated development environments of the software world. In this mode, code browsing, single stepping, setting the breakpoints, watching the variable type of features are supported by all major simulators. Interactive mode is very useful for doing the early code debugging. It can also be used for understanding the flow of code. Second mode of simulation is batch mode. For doing batch mode simulation, code is compiled into a standalone executable. The executable is useful for running the batch mode simulation. Batch mode simulation is useful for running multiple tests in parallel in the form of regression. This completes the major activities of the development phase. Next, let's look into regression phase. Regression is a process of running all the tests that are ready to run, reporting the status of run, and triaging the failures. Main focus of regression is to keep the passing tests in a passing state throughout the code development cycle. Both the design and test bench code undergoes lots of changes during the course of project. Dependencies that exist within the code can lead to change in one part of the code causing the failures in another part of the code. Scenarios of passing tests failing again cannot be completely eliminated. However, it can be minimized by running subset of passing tests before committing the changes to the central code repository. As the project races towards the completion, total tests in regression grows. It's not uncommon that a full regression for a project nearing completion can take multiple days. For every design release to the backend activities, functional correctness is signed off based on the results of regression. Efficiency of the regression system is key to the effectiveness of overall verification project. Next, let's look into how to debug the failures of regression in a bit more details. Test failure in regressions are almost inevitable. Debugging failure is like doing a detective work. Verification engineers' first objective is to isolate the failure between the DUT and test bench. If the issue is isolated to DUT, designers take care of fixing them. If the issue belongs to the test bench, then it has to be debugged further and fixed by the verification engineer. Failures indicate an expectation that is not met. Typically, this happens due to three major causes. First, misunderstanding of requirements. Second, programming mistakes. Third, operational environment issues. Operational environment refers to operating system, makefile, tools, and utilities. The clues for debugging work are found in the test run log files, waveforms, and interactive debug sessions. Debug starts with a log file produced by the test run. This is used to do the initial isolation of issue between either the DUT or test bench. If it's a DUT issue, waveforms are used for doing the root cause to a block within the DUT. If it's a test bench issue, then interactive debuggers are used to root cause it to a test bench component. This completes the quick journey through the planning phase by defining the verification plan and test bench architecture, development phase by developing the test bench and test suite using the verification methodologies and high-level verification languages, regression phase of running tests in a batch mode and doing debug of the failing tests. Development and regression phase are repeated for every milestone. After completing the last milestone, objective is to get all the test passings and meet the coverage goals. After this is completed, duty can be signed off from the functional verification point of view. This completes the life cycle of verification. Verification closure never really happens, but for the practical purpose, it means all prioritized tests in the test suite are passing, no critical bugs are open, and prioritized coverage goals are being met. Managing verification project is all about ensuring the required timelines and project goals are met with the optimum utilization of engineers' energy. We have so far seen technical aspects of the verification. Let's briefly look into the people aspects of verification. Let's look into the composition of verification teams. Let's take a look at with whom will verification engineers share their office space with. This also gives a broad idea about the career path for verification engineers. There are 5 key roles in the verification project. Note that multiple roles can be played by a single person or a single role can be played by multiple persons. It depends on the needs and the priority of the project. Specification expert understands the requirement specifications thoroughly. He will be the go-to person for any doubts in the specification. A verification expert understands the verification technologies and chooses the right technologies for the project in hand. He also writes the verification plan and architects the test bench. He will be the technical lead of the project. Verification engineers have a good understanding of verification fundamentals, verification technologies, HVLs, tools, and debug techniques. They are primarily responsible for building the test bench components, test suites, and executing them on the DUT to achieve the verification goals. Automation expert is a Linux geek, tools guru, and a scripting expert. He will ensure productive working environment for the entire verification team. Verification manager will choose the right person for the task and schedule it. He will maintain clarity on the priorities, milestones, roles and responsibilities of the team. He will make sure team delivers on milestones and finally signs off on the closure of the verification project. Let's take a quick snap at current verification trends. Simulation and emulation are two major technologies at play. First, let's take a look at simulation technologies. Current popular approach to IP verification is coverage-driven constraint random verification. Popular drivers in this space are System Verilog and UVM verification methodology. To learn more about System Verilog, get hold of Language Reference Manual by IEEE. To learn more about UVM, get hold of User Manual and Class Reference Manual bundled with the open source code from Accelera. Formal verification is catching up fast. Although it's not a mainstream functional verification sign-off tool yet, but it's helping solve some specific class of problems which cannot be solved optimally using the constraint random approach. Some of the problem classes include computation intensive data paths and proving the absence of deadlocks. Formal verification is primarily driven by the set of assertions about the design. It's an exciting technology and maturing fast. Most recent development is a portable stimulus from Accelera. Portable stimulus is primarily created for portability of the same stimulus between the IP and SOC level verification. Some other innovative uses of the same are also being developed. Its use for optimizing the stimulus to meet the coverage goals faster is gaining traction. Let's look at the emulation technologies next. As the size of ASICs is growing, the simulation technologies are struggling to keep up, especially the speed of simulation for large designs. Emulation technologies are making inroads to address this problem. Emulation is a dedicated, specialized hardware supplied by EDA vendors that can help in two ways. One, to accelerate the simulation, and second is to enable the early software development. Apart from the emulation, the automation of test bench generation and debugging is another area which is growing fast. These are few of the interesting developments that are taking place in the functional verification space. So that brings us to the end of the presentation. Thank you for watching the video. Do write any of your questions or feedback to the email ID mentioned in the slide, which is anand@verifsuda.com. Thanks once again.